As I said the other day when discussing the scramble for Africa, I talked about each European country's African land claims and some of the resources available or problems that arose. I mentioned that I would talk about Belgium, King Leopold, and the Congo later, and that later is now. As you previously learned, initially the first interest in Africa was along the coastal regions to develop trade stations and create ports. And the only Europeans who penetrated the African interior was explorers, missionaries, and humanitarians. These explorers wanted to explore the source of the Nile and to trace the course of the other major rivers. One of these explorers was an American named Henry Morton Stanley. He brought interest back to Central Africa because he found Dr. Livingstone in modern-day Tanzania. Livingstone was presumed dead after being missing the past 6 years with zero contact to the outside world. Livingstone was one of the most famous explorers of the time, and he was one of those explorers searching for the source of the Nile. And a famous quote arose from this account, and it was Dr. Livingstone, I presume? And that was by Morgan Stanley. Henry Stanley was the one that said that. But some historians believe that that exact account was a fabrication, did not exist. Because Stanley and Livingstone did not retell that account in their personal journals. Livingstone lived the rest of his life in Africa, trying to complete his mission of finding the Nile source. He died a few years later after contracting malaria, which is a very common disease in the African jungle. A few years later, Stanley was sent back to Central Africa to explore the Great Lakes and rivers, and also to find the source of the Nile. And those expeditions piqued the interest of King Leopold of Belgium. In 1876, the Belgian king created an international scientific philanthropic association called the International Africa Association. He ended up hiring Henry Stanley to explore the Congo Basin and to develop trading stations along the Congo River and to sign secret treaties with African tribes in the Congo River Basin. Stanley and the association signed over 450 separate treaties. And on that basis, it gave King Leopold the right motives to govern all the lands in the Congo as one nation. You're probably wondering, right, I'm talking about how it gave King Stanley the motive, even if it's his International African Association charity. You'll learn a little bit of that in a little bit. And his motives were purely political, economical, and ideologic. As you guys learned about the Scramble for Africa and the Berlin Conference these past few days, some of the outcomes from that conference directly relates or contradicts King Leopold. And those are the slave trade, establishing a framework for negotiation future claims, which the country must notify the other European countries of its African claim and be able to show control of that land. It also declared the Congo River Basin to be neutral, which guaranteed freedom for trade and shipping for all states in the basin. As we're going to go back to, I was talking about Leopold and the association, is here we go. Leopold succeeded in his goal of convincing the Belgian people and the major power of Europe that his interest in Africa was purely philanthropic and human-oriented. So at the Berlin Conference, he put in a claim that his charity should be the controller of the Congo and to be used to show as a model to better Africa, and their claim was accepted. But the association humanitarian philanthropic goals was a blatant lie. You're probably asking what I mean by that. The Scientific and Philanthropic Association was actually a front organization. It was a private holding company, 100% owned by the King of Belgium. All of the other stockholders were actually just holding the stocks for the king to enhance the organization's credibility to outsiders. The other countries in Europe were unknown to this development. So this gave King Leopold his own personal kingdom, not land of the charity, not land of Belgium, just his own personal land. So after this, they became the Congo Free State, problems started to amount. There was exterior problems. One was from the south. The British in South Africa was expanding their lands north and threatened to occupy Katanga, an area in southern Congo, by exploiting the principle of effectivity loophole from the Berlin Conference Treaty. The principle of effectivity loophole was introduced to prevent powers from setting up colonies in name only. Any fresh act of taking possessions of any portion of the Africa coast or interior would have to be notified by the power taking possession or to the other signature powers in a protectorate. This comes to the question of the Yiki Kingdom, who had no treaties with any European countries, and their lands were known to be rich in copper and maybe even gold. So Britain and the Congo Free State either had to show military power or sign a treaty with this kingdom for their lands. And the African king played these two European countries against each other. But the Free State was not having any of that. The military commander gave the African king an ultimatum, and the ultimatum was to sign a treaty and hold a blood brotherhood ceremony the next day, and to fly the Free State flag, or else. And the king's response was, "Give me the night," and he left. So the next day, the Free State tried to find the king, but he was gone. So they ordered troops to locate the king. The troops found the king, the African king, and 300 tribesmen behind him with muskets. So the Free State troops and the African king started a discussion. And during the discussion, argument broke out, and one of the Free State men killed the African king with 3 shots to the midsection. Then the Katanga area in southern Congo became ruled by the Free State after this incident. Other problems that the Free Congo experienced was in the interior. It was ruled by Arab slavers, sultans, powerful kings, warlords who had to be coerced or defeated in battle. These independent states allowed slavery and the slave trade, which is against one of the tenets in the Berlin Conference. And the international problems were also mounting, because most of the land was an unmapped jungle and had huge debts, because the king could not meet the cost of running the Free Congo state. Due to these huge debts and economic problems, desperate and violent measures had to be taken to increase the King Leopold's profits. Under the King Leopold's administration, the Congo Free State became the site of one of the most infamous international scandals at the turn of the 20th century. The Free State brutalized the local population to produce rubber. Rubber at this time was a growing international market due to the spread of automobiles. And the public police, called the Force Publique, routinely mutilated, which means they cut off limbs, they cut off hands, and murdered the indigenous population to enforce rubber production quotas. They did this to try to motivate people to work harder and to reach rubber quotas. The report of the British consul led the world to become aware of these horrors happening in the Congo. It led to the arrest and punishment of many white officials responsible for cold-blooded killings during the rubber collecting expeditions, including one Belgian national who killed at least 122 natives. Eventually, the Parliament of Belgium annexed the Congo Free State from the king and took over administration in 1908 as a colony of the Belgian Congo. Tomorrow, you guys will learn more about the Free State of Congo, but more in depth from this today. You guys will have a reading on this. Thank you.